Welcome to Bergen Summer Research School 2020. I'm Håvard Horstad, this year's Scientific Director. This year we're spread out all across the world, but I'm here in Bergen with the rest of the support staff and many of the course lecturers. And here on stage I'm joined by Hawaida Abdelrahman, who many of you have met and know already from email communication. We are really excited to have you as part of this year's annual summer school in Bergen, even though this year's edition is a little bit different than what we are used to. This year's theme is actionable knowledge to meet global challenges. Actionable knowledge means thinking about how the knowledge that we produce makes a difference in the world. At the current moment, there's no doubt that we need more knowledge and more research. But I think it's a particular type of knowledge, a particular type of researchers that are needed at this moment. We need researchers who engage with the world around them, who use their insights to try to solve societal challenges and try to change the world, who are not afraid to venture outside the walls of the ivory tower. We should be mindful of the powerful role that the knowledge that we create is playing and how research can take part in changing the world in very powerful ways. We should also be mindful of the privilege and responsibility that comes with being a researcher. Bergen Summer Research School is focused on exploring the interfaces between science, society, and global challenges. Many of our keynotes and common sessions explore this theme and give space for discussing the possibilities and opportunities and constraints and difficulties of actionable knowledge. The focus on actionable knowledge does not make it any less important to do excellent and rigorous science. To the contrary, with our 5 PhD courses, workshops, and seminars, we will help build your capabilities as researchers. We will make you familiar with the research frontier and develop your critical thinking. We have 2 exciting weeks ahead of us. Of course, it's a bit different than what we had planned when we started thinking about this. We've had to reorganize the way that we do our teaching in light of the pandemic. It's of course sad that we will not be able to meet you in Bergen, and that you will not get to visit our beautiful city this time around. But at the same time, we are confident that these virtual platforms also offer new opportunities. And we are doing our best to use these opportunities to give you the best teaching that we can. For this to succeed, we need your active engagement. Both the courses and the common activities require participation and interaction from you, the students, particularly now that we are all online and all virtual. So let's make the most of these 2 weeks that we have together. Next, I would like to present you to some of the people who are working in the background to make this summer school a success. You can see them on the screen now. We have Lera, who's course designer, helping out with the digital platforms and interactions. Lera, academic coordinator for the summer school. Tord Røe, responsible for communication. And Tore Sæterstad, scientific coordinator for global challenges at the UIA. We'll get some practical information from Hawaida.
Dear participants, welcome to the virtual version for the Bergen Summer Research School 2020. In addition to the PhD course that you are attending, there will be other joint sessions which are obligatory to attend. For the schedule for these sessions, please check MeetUIB for the course named BSRS/Cool 2020 SAM. Information about the course you are attending and the joint sessions are all available at MeetUIB. If you wish to have a notification for these events, please turn the notification functions from your MeetUIB account. And an email will be sent to your UIB email with all these events. Please check your calendar every day for all these activities. These courses are dynamic and there may be a daily updates. We will continue using the Zoom service. For a better stability, it is recommended that you install the Zoom. To find more information about Zoom, please browse the website zoom.us. You may install it on the PC or download an app from your device application store. More information are available at MeetUIB of how to use the Zoom. For the live sessions in Zoom, please make sure that your camera and microphone are muted. To raise a question, please use the chat facility. Please use headphones and earbuds with a microphone when in live sessions. All these live sessions will be streamed and recorded at the Bergen Summer Research School YouTube channel. If you are not a regular UIB candidate, your account is valid till the 31st of May 2021. And this is to remind you, by submitting the essay before the start of the Bergen Summer Research School and your participations on the obligatory sessions, you will be awarded a 4 ECTS. If you wish to earn the 10 ECTS, you are asked to submit another paper at the end of the BSRS. The requirement for these submissions is organized by the course leader themselves. So please contact them. And if you have more inquiries, please contact me. If you didn't yet register online, please do so using the link that was sent by email to you on the 31st May. And now we are looking forward for your online participation and commitment, and thanks for bearing with us the challenge of making this event happen.
Thank you. We will turn to today's keynote address, which will be held by Asuncion Lera Clair. She is a senior principal scientist at DNV-GL and a senior advisor for Earth Science Services at Barcelona SuperComputing Center. Clair, I would say, is an embodiment of actionable knowledge. She has been professor of sociology at the University of Bergen and is one of the founders of the Bergen Summer Research School. Since then, she has had many different roles at the intersection between science and society. For example, she's been part of the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and Future Earth. And now she's part of the EU's mission board on adaptation to climate change, including societal transformation. And she will talk to us today about mission-oriented research and innovation for global challenges. And Asum, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Hobart, and thank you very much for this invitation to give a talk today to all of you. I'm delighted to be here in virtual presence, but still, nevertheless, as a present. Let me share my screen, and hopefully you can see my screen by now. All right. Somebody will let me know if there is any technical problem. Let me start with the topic of this year's Bergen Summer Research School, actionable knowledge to meet global challenges. And my first comment refers very much to what Hobart had mentioned at his opening remarks, that the first thing we need to have is definitely very good science, very good basic science, and also very good applied science. And this needs to come from all the different types of the sciences and without the hierarchy, because it's not that the social sciences and the humanities are only about the human, but we need amongst all to be able to enter into dialogue and join work across all the disciplines. The second point I wanted to say is that the whole world is really forcing us to this problem-oriented research or solutions-oriented research. And the Sustainable Development Goals are simply the embodiment of all that by demonstrating that we have biosphere, society, and economy as three main areas of the world that need to be seen interconnected and that they all require our attention. Howard also mentioned that this is a lot about the topics that we choose as researchers, the topics that teachers and organizations like the Bergen Summer Research School choose to address, but it also has to do with personal motivation and even with philosophies of science. So the drive to solve a particular problem also needs to be seen within the traditions of different research disciplines. And these traditions, some of the disciplines do have a very strong tradition of looking into the real world for problems, and others less so. We need to leverage the capacities of all of them. Another issue that is important, and of course I could have given the whole lecture focused on this, is that the different disciplines and traditions of research have underpinning philosophies of science that tell us different perceptions of how do we capture the problems of the world and what is the role of science in actually offering solutions and even being normative, including the fact that many disciplines still quite oppose this role of researchers of embedding themselves too much into the world. I personally disagree, but I think we need to respect that some traditions are not that favorable to that. And this leads me also to make a remark regarding epistemology and the way in which we know. Certainly, research-oriented, problem-oriented research requires both scientific and non-scientific knowledge. And it requires, as I said earlier, interdisciplinarity and transdisciplinarity. So there is really a shift towards societally relevant research and innovation. And this is for multiple reasons. First of all, it's very clear that there is an increased role of knowledge in all spheres of lives, and the terminology of knowledge societies is all over the place, even since the past decade. There is also the issue that many of the challenges we face are global and require a particular type of perspective that is able to encompass the global nature. Also is the complexity and the interconnectedness of the challenges. And remember just the figure of the wedding cake with the Sustainable Development Goals, where they are all complex, but they are all interconnected, also with emergent properties. And this means that you cannot really understand the problems or put forward solutions by looking only at one part. So we need to be able to see from a systems perspective, and again, interdisciplinarity and transdisciplinarity becomes a fundamental tool for our goal. I also want to say something, and I will give some examples of the increased role of technology in both causing and also the potential for solving these challenges. And perhaps artificial intelligence and the debates around the ethics and the societal impact of artificial intelligence is just one example. I wanted to share with you also that when we talk about this idea of tackling global challenges, we cannot forget the role of innovation. So it's usually research and innovation. And here is where innovation, which is the definition that I like, is something that is new and something that is useful, is also at the same time a major drive for growth, or at least it should be. So having brilliant ideas is important, but those brilliant ideas need to be useful and need to be leveraged in the way that the usefulness applies to everybody and not only serves for accumulating wealth of the few, which unfortunately is often the case. There is a major issue with innovation, power, money, and politics. And I had recently, as part of a project that I'm working for the International Science Council and the UN Development Program, I had the opportunity to actually interview this author, Shoshana Zuboff. I don't know if you know her book, but if you have to read one book this year, I strongly recommend to read this one, even though it's quite complex. In there, she really unpacks the problems and the potential that we are facing in relation to the digital transformation. And one of the most important things that she told me and that I think actually is completely right on the top of the things that need to happen, is saying, for me, the hope lies in asserting democratic governance over the digital and transform this digital century into a way of solving existing challenges. So this idea that we need to leverage knowledge and we need to leverage investments and research efforts to serve society, I think has come really finally to be mature and is being put forward in the mission of the European Commission that I will explain in a second. I also wanted to share with you research efforts such as this new initiative initiated by Future Earth and supported by a multiplicity of actors, both in the public and the private sector. It's called Sustainability in the Digital Age. And we have created a large research agenda promoting the idea that we need to leverage the digital age to drive transformative system change. And on the side of the figure, what you see is the sort of conceptualization of certain digital disruptors, like, for example, unprecedented transparency, intelligent systems, mass collaboration, and even the possibility of mixed reality to be levers to enable that transition and transformation. So let me just spend the next 5 minutes introducing to you to this concept of mission-oriented research. It emerges from the work in the European Commission Research and Innovation Unit, informed by the author Mariana Mazzucato, which is, I will say, one of the most influential economists in the world today, where she had argued for a long time that we need to debunk this idea that innovation emerges only in the private sector and that it builds on the knowledge that universities support, like the Bergen Summer Research School. And eventually she led a process as an expert advisor to the Commission, pushing forward the idea that the next set of research and innovation program of the Commission should be mission-oriented. And as a result of that, by the way, she has a forthcoming book called The Mission Economy that I also recommend all of you to take a look. What emerges from that is the analogy that she made, saying, you know, guys, when we decided to go to the moon, it was like, you know, we want to go to the moon. We really don't know how to get there. We don't even have the engineering capabilities. But the goal was to get to the moon, and everything else was put behind in order to achieve that goal. And in her view, and in the view that has become now the view of the missions of the European Commission under Horizon Europe missions, is exactly that. The idea is to say there are some problems in the world that we need to change, and we need to start there, understanding those problems, and then build up the knowledge and use the knowledge that we have in order to solve the problems. Those missions are intended to achieve ambitions and inspirational goals. They are supposed to provide a clear direction and also to be targeted and measurable and time-bound. The whole idea is that this knowledge must impact society and must be in collaboration with policymaking, and the ambition is actually to change policy. And another key element that I'm personally very involved with is to engage with citizens in the co-design, co-creation, co-implementation, and co-assessment of these missions. There are currently 5 missions. You can find online information about all these on cancer, soil, health and food, climate neutral and smart cities, and healthy oceans, coastal and inland waters. The 5th one is adaptation to climate change, including societal transformation. And I have the pleasure to serve as an expert advisor to the Commission, sitting on the mission board. I want to share with you today something that is completely new. We delivered this to the Commission last Friday, and it's our first draft of what we think this mission needs to accomplish. What is the vision that we have? And the vision that we put forward for the research and innovation community, that we need to accelerate the transition to a climate prepared and resilient Europe. And the idea underlying this is that we need to turn the urgent challenge of adapting to climate change into an opportunity to make Europe resilient, climate prepared, and fair. And all the things you hear about the recovery of COVID fit perfectly fine with that. And in fact, this mission is becoming, together with the Green Deal, one of the instruments that the Commission wants to put to that. Just to show you the scale of all this, the idea is to have 3 layers of work. On the one hand, is about better understanding and preparing for climate risks that we know are going to happen regardless of what we do. So it's about coping and preparing for the disruptions. Above that, we want to ensure that we build capacity to accelerate the transition to a resilient future by creating, together with citizens and stakeholders, a vision and a series of innovation pathways that will create the enabling conditions and solutions. And on top of the pyramid, it's about doing demonstrators, upscaling the solutions that trigger transformations. So you see the huge scope of this super ambitious idea that the Commission has for the task going forward in the next 7 years. I have some details for you, but I want to pass perhaps a little bit fast with this, simply to say that we are putting forward 5 key community systems, five systems that we think are important for Europe, but for all over the world: the community and social infrastructure, which is about better buildings and better services; health and well-being, which is the key topic of the world because of the pandemic. We need to ensure nature, biodiversity, and ecosystem services. There is a topic around water, and there is a topic around adaptation of rural landscapes and food systems. All these issues are fundamental to promoting resilience in Europe by 2030. This is just one example of the details, and you can have these slides and perhaps look at it more calmly by yourselves. 2 more points for me. Citizen engagement, which I have mentioned, is one of the main ambitions of the European Commission. Engaging with citizens, participatory research is important just because we want to make sure that the research is relevant and impacts society. But it's also, for the Commission and for many of us, also a form of deliberative democracy, because many of the choices that we need to make, including choices that affect the way in which we do research, really have serious trade-offs and have problems and can even lead to losers and to winners. So we want to make sure that these solutions, these pathways, these demonstrators are really created and co-created with citizens. Engaging with citizens is complementary to what is usually called stakeholder engagement. This is about really getting to citizens in a representative manner in all the necessary countries. And we are working at 3 levels: co-design, co-implementation of the mission, and then the co-evaluation. So to give you an example of the co-design part, the PowerPoint that I'm presenting to you has, of course, an accompanying longer document that is now going to be consulted with citizens in citizen engagement events in various European countries. And this also is important to see that it requires an enabling environment that requires access to data, knowledge, and digital services, that really builds up local economies, that is inclusive and fair, and that provides shared learning and policy coherence. So just to conclude, and to give the message of what universities can do in regards to this mission, but more general for the topic of the Bergen-Sammer Research School, and for which the Bergen-Sammer Research School is a clear example. Universities and their activities are the key enabling environment for this grand vision to happen. On the one hand, we need to mobilize research and innovation to improve our knowledge base, again, going from very good basic knowledge to apply to engaging with the stakeholders in society. We also need to unlock the benefits of the digital transformation, not by doing events digitally, but in many other ways, and facilitate the co-production of data, the co-production of knowledge, and the co-design of climate information and actionable solutions in the case of climate, but in other topics will be a similar approach. Universities as key enabling environments can also lay the ground for an inclusive and fair transition by engaging citizens, but also and primarily by educating people to develop the skills, capacities, and capabilities, and the attitudes and mindsets that are required to do this work. So we need to provide the principles, but also the mechanisms to ensure that the transition to sustainability is a just transition. This also means educating people to understand that we need to build resilient and sustainable economies and to teach the skills that are necessary to actually do that, to close the climate protection gap, and also to mobilize sufficient funds and financing. And lastly, of course, we need to ensure the coordination for shared learning and the dialogue with policy for a more coherent policy making. So we need to create coordination mechanisms, and we also need to ensure structures and processes that allow coordination across different levels of governance. So there is a big role for universities, and there is a big role for motivated students like all of you to participate in this ambition. What I have presented is at the European level, just because I'm sharing with you the work that is done in the mission of Horizon Europe. But I will say similar approaches and similar problems and similar perspectives are probably relevant also for many parts of the world. So with this, I want to say thank you to all of you, and also thank you on behalf of my colleagues who sit on the board for the Climate Change Adaptation and Societal Transformation Mission, headed by Connie Hedegaard. And I'm here for questions and for any other comments that you may have for me. Thank you very much.
2 seconds.
Yeah. Am I on? Yeah, sorry. That was my fault. So we're back on. Thank you so much, Asun. That was a really good overview of this field, and it's really, really inspiring. I think that we, at least at some levels, we seem to be returning to this idea of missions, to put everything else aside to solve these or to meet these major goals. And I think it's really the direction that we should be going, and it's great that you're part of this. But I wonder, could you say a bit more about? We'll get into some questions later, and we'll take questions in Q&A. So I encourage students to write your questions there, and I can moderate the debate. But I want to start off by asking, what is the link, do you think, between this work that's been done on these mission boards and the decision-making processes that are taking place? I mean, to what extent do you expect that this work is going on, the citizen engagement and this expert discussions will impact on actual decision-making?
So the decision-making and the links with governments at the I'm talking at the European level.
Sorry, you need to turn your sound back on. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Så, ja, det är det.
Ta den ner lite. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
All right. So then let me answer this. Very good question, right? So at the European level, this is actually packed into the process, right? So these mission boards have a series of committees where people from all the member countries sit, including Norway. So we have what is called a shadow committee that has representatives from the different ministries. In Norway, we have people from the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Climate Change and Energy. And then many countries are creating their own mirror committees for the mission. So for example, because I'm Spanish and I also have a position in Spain, we have created a mirror committee. And we are in constant dialogue with both the Minister for Ecological Transition, which is a new ministry we have in Spain, and the Minister for Science and Innovation. The idea is evidently so the missions come with a little bit of pocket of money, and the idea is that they serve as a push for mobilizing action in a particular direction. So even in that sense, it's extremely ambitious. But people are taking it very seriously. I have given talks in the Norwegian Research Council. I'm visiting various ministries next week in Norway. So I think there is a connection there, and also in the case of this mission, but the smart cities and the land and the oceans as well are seen as primary tools for the Commission to put forward and materialize the Green Deal. So in that sense, it's actually a quite interesting exercise. How successful will it be? Depends, of course, on the policymakers and how open they are. I'm hopeful. I need to be hopeful.
Great. So we have a couple of questions. Sorry. Yeah. The first two couple of questions are about sort of the citizen engagement process and how that will work. Alma Silva asks, how will citizens be engaged? Who will select them? How will they be organized?
Right.
So could you talk a bit more about that?
Right. So I know a lot about this because I'm the lead for the citizen engagement in my mission, and I have been involved for quite the past 4 months with staff from the Commission and the Joint Research Center to organize that. This is a new thing, right? We talk a lot about citizen engagement. It is actually a field of research within the social sciences. The Commission now and the missions are working a series of events, which for the moment will be digital. And we are working with a specialist on citizen engagement to make sure that there is random samples selecting the citizens in a way that they are representative. For example, I have been offered the guidance, which has been fantastic, of the people who are organizing France Citizen Assembly for climate change. And so there is quite a lot of very good preparation. The Commission will do 2 events this year for each of the missions. It will be 10, and then many different countries are organizing them. But it is a challenge, and not everybody understands that one thing is engaging stakeholders and having a consultation. Very different thing is to really select in a random sample citizens and then have the commitment to actually take on their comments and their views and change our document. So that's the plan.
And there's another question that's related to this, asking about how this will work in the global south. Obviously, that's a broader question because what you're working on here is EU. But if you could talk a bit more generally about deliberative democracy in settings of the global south, and I know that you've worked on that before. So how do we ensure that citizens are engaging in these sort of knowledge production processes in those types of settings?
Right. I think we need to push for exactly the same types of principles. So just to give an example, I mentioned that I am involved in this project, which is about re-articulating the concept of human development proposed by the UNDP and the Human Development Report Office, which is now 30 years old. My God, we are old. I'm old. And I have been interviewing a lot of people from the global south. And I keep getting again and again the same comment. We need to engage with citizens. We need to ask people the meaning of human development for them. So there is a huge push for that. And I will say that the same push for researchers to work with these issues should be in the global south. So we need to keep making deliberative democracy not only a form of governance that political scientists study, but also something that we embed in our work, even for the natural sciences, because it's perfectly possible, certainly in relation to climate change.
And then there's a couple of questions about universities as an enabling environment. And you talked about that a little bit in your talk, and I know that you also worked, in establishing Bergen Summer Research School and Future Earth and things like that. You've worked on trying to create enabling environments for more actionable knowledge and sort of social interactions between society and research. But how do you see that now? What are the most important things we can do, speaking to young researchers, to make sure that universities are good enabling environments for this way of thinking and working?
Right. So I'm going to make a call to arms, given that I'm not UIB staff anymore. I think students who really are concerned about these issues should demand universities to take a stand, right? The history of the role of the university in the 21st century needs to be very different than what it was in the 19th century, in the 20th century, where we see it on this neutral space, where science was viewed as neutral, where having a political stand was supposed to be not really appropriate. I really believe that universities need to be part of the solution. And in order to do that, we need to take a stand. We need to take a stand saying, like the University of Bergen does, we are going to have the Sustainable Development Goals as our guiding rod for our work. And then they need to be, for the students, they need to push for changing the system. Sorry, the system needs to change because interdisciplinarity is still not valued, because primarily careers in academia are you crawl the step within a discipline and that's what is valued. And also, I think we need to be very brave, although sometimes it's not easy, that you need to move to an uncomfortable place. You need to get out of academia and go live in the real world, whether that is the real world of business or the real world of community action and activism. So I think we need to be able to be inside academia and research and out and back again. And unfortunately, the system doesn't really allow that well for that because it doesn't value things that are not academic papers published in famous journals. But in the end, the role of the university is to actually open up all these boxes and change its role, and students to push for it.
Good. There's another question on the role of researchers in creating deliberate democracy. I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit. I mean, I guess that's about not just creating enabling environments in the universities, but in society in general. So basically, what can we do to stimulate deliberative democracy in society?
And I will be talking about this in my lecture for the course led by City Globen and other colleagues on climate governance this afternoon. So this is a very good question and allows me to say the following. I think for us researchers, one of the things most important to do in relation to these mission-oriented and global challenges research topics, we need to acknowledge the limits of scientific knowledge. There is a lot of things that, yes, require basic science, that, yes, require interdisciplinary science and transdisciplinarity and engaging with citizens and so on. But many issues are not for scientists to decide. It is for us as citizens to decide also. So, and that is very difficult, right? To let go of that power of framing and to be able to really say, I want to consult something and maybe this non-expert has a much better idea than I have after having read all these different books. So we need to move also out of that comfort space into an uncomfortable space to recognize the limits of our knowledge as scientists and to listen to other insights, which for solutions to work are absolutely necessary.
And I guess that also requires us to sort of rethink that our role within the universities, because we sort of build our careers and build sort of the metrics of the university system on being experts, right? And being right about things and being able to tell society that what the right path should be. So how do we find that balance, do you think, between sort of having that role as experts? I've done research on this. I've published it in a good journal. On one hand, and on the other hand, this is really a democratic question that people should be allowed to decide. How do we? What are the?
Okay.
What's that? How do we find
I think
that
I have
balance?
very good question, Howard. I think my answer will be we need to go back to be educators. Educators is the primary role of us as a staff in universities, and we need to start thinking that we want students to pass through university as something that's changed them, not to receive expert knowledge. That's one part of it. But primarily, I think we need to go back to be educators. And being educators is about many things. It's about also educating people to cope with a world that is uncertain, to cope with a world that suddenly plops, has this horrendous pandemic, and we all need to react and change. So I think going back to being educators, less experts and better educators, probably would be a good place to start.
Yeah. So one last question, and this is a difficult question, but I think it's one that's worth asking. But because Bergen Summer Research School brings together students from across the world and many different contexts, and I think when we talk about deliberative democracy and these assemblies and climate assemblies and these committees that we have the privilege of being part of or having in democratic societies, it may look very different from other contexts. So there's a question from an anonymous attendee about freedom of speech and countries where freedom of speech is entirely non-existing. How do we go about being critical academics in those contexts, particularly when academics are muted from speaking about these things which may be contradictory to what the ruling parties stand for? So of course, I don't expect you to have the recipe for this, but how do we engage in those types of very different contexts where deliberative democracy has
Right.
worse conditions?
So I'm not the right person to answer that, because I have never really lived as an adult in that situation. But I come from a country where I grew up, where that was exactly the case, and that was the Spain of the dictatorship of Franco, where most of our intellectuals fled or created resistance in their own different means. So I'm not saying that people should go into the resistance or flee their countries, but there is the message is that there is tons of examples across history in the past and also in the present, where intellectuals that felt that they were being silenced had ways to respond to that.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for taking this time to talk to us about this important work. And it's interesting to hear your reflections on these questions. I expect that many of these questions will come up throughout the summer school. We will talk about the different aspects and problems and challenges and possibilities of actionable knowledge and what that means, particularly for young researchers working in different contexts of the world. So thank you so much, Asuncion. Great to have you with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, and good luck to everybody with your classes.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Next, I will share my screen, and it's all right. My screen is shared. And I'll talk about the courses that we have ahead of us. So we have 2 exciting weeks, and there will be more keynotes, there will be workshops, there will be seminars, where we will all meet, all the 130 students that are taking part of the Bergen Summer Research School this year. But the skeleton, the meat of the Summer Research School is, of course, the PhD courses. So we have 5 PhD courses this year, and I thought I would would just briefly present these courses and the course lecturers. I can only see part of my own screen. So we have a course called Global Climate Governance Regime, which is led by Siri Gloppen at Law Transform here at the University of Bergen, and Danielle Rached from the Vargas Law School in Rio de Janeiro. So this is a course about the complexity of global or multi-level climate governance, and the course will look at the role of global climate governance regime in devising different ways to mitigate climate change and to adapt to the different ways we're already seeing that climate change is happening. The second course is about the determinants of migrants' health, which is led by Esperanza Diaz from the Department of Global Public Health here at the University of Bergen. The course is about integration, health, and well-being of both migrants and the societies that host them. The course will introduce interdisciplinary perspectives and skills required to address the field of migration and health related to the Sustainable Development Goals. Next is a course on cities in climate and energy transformations. And this is a course that I'm also involved with. It's led by Siddharth Serene and myself from the Center for Climate and Energy Transformation and Department of Geography at the University of Bergen. we will be looking at the role of cities in climate action. And we're really trying to understand how cities and urban regions are shaping sort of the global trajectory of climate and energy transformation. And then, of course, on global food systems, led by Ragnhild Overgaard and Peter Andersen from the Department of Geography, University of Bergen. This is a course that looks at food as a global system, including value chains from soil and water, produce and livestock, to market, consumption, and health. So the whole value chain of food, and look at that in a global perspective. So they will have the course will have case studies in a systems perspective, combining interdisciplinary approaches to the provision and consumption of food. Last but not least, a course on media for democracy, which I think touches really on some of the issues that we had up just now with Asuncion's keynote address on deliberative democracy and how that works in different societies and different contexts. It's led by Halvard Moe and Jan Fredrik Hovden from the Department of Information Science and Media Studies at the University of Bergen. So the course is about the relationship between media use, social inequalities, and citizenship. It takes its point of departure in how media's engagement with and views on major public issues are informed, shaped, and expressed by and through people's daily media use, including social media. Great. So with that, I would like to thank the University of Bergen and the UAB Global Challenges section for supporting the Bergen Summer Research School and all the work that has gone into turning this into a virtual event. We of course started planning this as a regular physical Bergen Summer Research School with having all of you come here to Bergen, which would have been great. Again, obviously not possible at the moment. But we decided to, instead of canceling the event, to make it virtual instead. And there's been amazing support, I think, from the Global Challenges unit at the University of Bergen in making this happen. So over the next 2 weeks, we will try to make the most of these opportunities that the virtual platforms are giving us, and I think that we've seen some of both of the challenges and opportunities already here today. But with that, I want to declare the Bergen Summer Research School 2020 for opened, and I wish all the students and lecturers the best of luck, and let's make the most of these 2 weeks together.